Hi there and welcome to another video out of this video series on how to start your own Kubernetes cluster by using this Terraform code and the kubeadm binary. In the previous video I went over this Kubernetes master Terraform module and I was explaining this main.tf file. I ended up explaining this main resource Scaleway instance server, which is responsible for the creation or setting up your new instance at a Scaleway where the Kubernetes master will be sitting. I quickly went over all of these input arguments and I explained them in detail, and I ended up with these provisioners, the file provisioner and the remote exec provisioner. If you recall, I needed to use this provisioner file to transport the files from my laptop, from this conf folder to the remote machine, to the instance which is currently being created by this code. For that, I needed to specify this source and the destination. So source is the conf folder, the things or the files I want to transfer over there, and the destination is actually the location at the remote server, and in this case it will be in OPT. I also had to specify the connection block. This connection block, as you might notice, looks quite different because I had way too much trouble with my SSH agent and I just couldn't make it work. Sometimes when I restarted it, it worked, sometimes it didn't. So I decided not to use my SSH agent for this and to specify the private key. Remember that this key has to be unencrypted. Terraform has no chance to ask you for the passphrase for this key. On the other hand, once the files are transferred to the remote machine, I needed to weigh how can I execute these files at this remote machine. For that, I leveraged the remote exec provisioner. So again, I specified the connection block. And as a part of the remote exec provisioner, you can have something like inline block. In this inline block, you can write some bash script or some shell command, or you can trigger basically any command you would normally be triggering in the command line at this remote machine. In my case, I need to grant the executable permissions within the OPT folder. I know that this is quite broad, it can be restricted. Then I'm sleeping for 7 seconds, and the main thing about this line or about this code is to execute the shell script from the OPT folder, and this shell script is nothing else just this setup master.sh bash script, which is responsible for creating of the single master Kubernetes cluster. So the magic is done at this line 52. kubeadm init is the command which will initiate your Kubernetes cluster, but I will reach this point later on. Initially, I thought that I'll be continuing with the explanation of this master Terraform module and main.tf file, but I've decided it's going to be better if I'm going to just comment this last portion or part of this main.tf file over here. So I commented out because I think it requires a dedicated video, this data external and join command. I was also playing with the Scaleway provider version in the main.tf file at the most upper level, and this caused me several problems. I wanted to try whether the Scaleway already supporting version number 2, because they have announced it quite a while before, but it's still not released. That's why I just defined this version 1.11, which is referred or which can be found in the documentation. Afterwards, I had to run terraform init command. This file has been previously different. It was in version, I believe, 1.11. Now the newest version is 1.13. And the guys at the Scaleway, they have eventually changed something. As a result of this, my Terraform code stopped working, and I gotta show you what was the problem. So over here at the main.terraform, if I'm gonna scroll up, I defined this resource Scaleway IP address. This is nothing else, just the public IP address, which needs to be assigned to your server you are creating. So initially, this line number 9 was uncommented, and this resource has been dependent on the actual server, on the Scaleway instance server resource. Now they changed it, as I checked in the documentation, so I commented this line, and instead I defined one more argument within this resource. This argument is IP_ID. I'm referencing to the Scaleway instance IP, which is this one. Its name is this, and I need to specify the ID. One more problem I ran into was this output.tf file. Previously, I have used this syntax, Scaleway server this is the name of the resource. And since I'm using the count keyword here at the main.tf file at this line, I'm supposed to use the indexes. But it somehow, from some reason, the Terraform doesn't accept it. So I needed to change it to line number 8, and I have used this new syntax from Terraform version 12. I'm not quite sure whether or why this syntax doesn't work, because it works for me very nicely in the AWS Terraform code. I think it's related to this Scaleway provider version 1.13. So what I'm using, I'm actually leveraging this new syntax, which is quite similar Python dict comprehension, if you know Python. I'm reiterating through this Scaleway instance server. This is the resource name, which is simply this. And I'm using just this variable, which is usually referenced as I, like this, as I, but I've used the val. And I'm trying to extract the private IP address in this case and the public IP address in this case. If I'm going to run Terraform validate, now it's working. I'm really wondering what's going on and why this is behaving in the way it behaves, just because if the code was designed in the fashion with these lines 7 and 13, Terraform validate didn't show me any problem. The problem I ran into was when I ran Terraform apply and then Terraform said this code is not valid. I also have to comment this line number 18 to 21 because this is related to data external and join command. And I will record a dedicated video on this topic. Okay, let's try to run the Terraform code. At first, I'm going to run Terraform validate to see whether my code is valid. As you can see, it's valid. So now I think I'm ready to Terraform apply it, and let's see what happens. I'm going to help myself again with the README, like there's no autocomplete for this variable, and that's why I just need to specify it. If you recall, I need to specify it in this fashion because I'm not using a simple variable.tf file for the input, but instead I'm using the Terraform Scaleway tf vars as the addition. The Terraform showed me what's going to be executed. I simply hit yes. By the time this code is executing, I just split my command line window, and as soon as I'll see the public IP address of a newly created server, I'll try to SSH over there and I will explore the OPT folder. At this point, the provisioning file has been triggered. I'm going to show you which code is executing right now. So this is exactly this line number 29. The Terraform is trying to copy the files from the conf folder to my remote server, to this location OPT. Meanwhile, I can go to my Scaleway web console to grab the IP address of this server. Alright, so here I am at the Scaleway web console. I'm going to refresh this page to see the two instances. Okay, this is the IP address I'm interested in. Okay, I'll copy this IP address over here, and it feels like it should be working. Alright, so I haven't seen this prompt for quite a while since I had a problem with this connection block. And as you can see, I'm able to connect via SSH, and even my Terraform code is finally able to connect to the Scaleway instance. Alright, so I'm interested into this OPT folder, and as you can see, all these files from this conf folder from my local has already been copied to this server. Great, I want to see what's going on, and I'm simply going to run ps command. So I'm wondering whether this remote exec has been already triggered. Let's run top command, so we will see. As you might notice, this script, the setup master script, is already running, and I'm pretty sure I set up some logs redirecting all the outputs or all the actions what it's doing to the log file, and I will tail this log file by running tail-f and opt, and I believe I just redirected it to this log file over here. Over here you can check what actions are taken in order to start your Kubernetes cluster. Technically, this is the output of what's going on when this setup.master script is executed. As far as I can see, the script is already executing this kubadm init command, so the Kubernetes cluster is being started. It looks like the script has finished its execution, so I can stop tailing, and my Kubernetes cluster should be up and running within a few seconds. To make sure that your Kubernetes cluster is started, you can run kubectl get pods in the system namespace in this fashion. Hit enter, and you should be seeing several pods up and running. The pods we are interested in are these core DNS. You are supposed to have 2 pods related to core DNS. Then this is the etcd. The most important part is the API server. I mean, all the parts are important, but whenever you are communicating or triggering this kubectl command, you are talking to this API server running at a port 6443. If I'm now going to ask my Kubernetes cluster for all the nodes or whether it's actually ready, I can run this command kubectl get nodes. And so far, I only have 1 node in my cluster, and this is obvious because I just ran my Terraform script or Terraform code for the Kubernetes master module. One more thing you might notice is this output out of the Terraform code. I defined these 3 outputs, which is the master Scaleway image for the CentOS, so this is this particular image in the France region, and then the public and the private IP address. Just notice that the output is in form of the list because I have used this new syntax and I outputted these commands or these outputs or variables in form of a list. In case you need to use, or I'll need to use these variables as a single string or as a single value, I will need to do some adjustments to this output. So the outputs I'm talking about are located in here. If I'll need the value or the output just as a single IP address, then I need to adjust this output somehow. Alright, that's pretty much it for this video. If you like this video, just make sure you subscribe for this channel so you won't miss any other videos. And don't forget to hit this little bell so you'll be notified once I'll release another video. If you're interested in my other projects at Udemy, you can check it out in the comment below. I'll see you in another video.